All right, we're going to get started. We'll start with the invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Tom Babcock's going to give us the invocation.
Father, we pray for your spirit here this afternoon, that you will give us guidance and wisdom and help us in all things, and that nobody's testimony will be lost, and give us a spirit of understanding. We thank you for everything you've given us, and give us a good meeting. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Mac, you ready?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Matt Carpenter for the Planning Department. We have one item on our agenda tonight. That is the Sandestin Boutique Hotel. It's a request approved by major development order. They're proposing originally a 252-room hotel. We may find that that's been reduced to 250 once the applicant has an opportunity to testify. There have been some fairly intense negotiations going on.
Oh, sorry. I guess before we get too far, I'm going to go ahead and swear
Yeah,
everybody
we
in,
need
if
to
that's
swear.
okay. Anyone who anticipates testifying on this item, if you would stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide to this board will be the truth? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, this is a major development order application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates on behalf of Sandestin Investments, requesting approval to construct not larger than a 252-room hotel. Project's located on the northwest, at the northwest intersection of Baytown Village Drive and Legend Creek Drive within the Sandestin Development of Regional Impact. It's identified by the parcel number in your package, and the site is approximately 2.11 acres. We'd like to request a staff report be entered into evidence. And since we continued this meeting from the regular Planning Commission meeting earlier this month, I understand there's been some fairly intense negotiations between the applicant and the adjacent property owners, condominium owners. They have corrected the notice requirement that pushed us to this particular meeting, and they have some additional proposals related to this development that I'd like to bring forward. And if I could, I'd like to introduce the applicant and let them present their case.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Dana Matthews. I represent Sandestin Investments, LLC, who is the applicant for this project. I'll refer to them as SDI during the course of these proceedings. As Mr. Carpenter told you, there was an issue of notice. We believe we complied. Bottom line is we went ahead and got additional mailing lists from Mr. Shipman and provided those notices, and they were all filed with the planning department. We do not believe there's any issue associated with that at this time. To refresh your memories, about a year ago, Planning Commission voted, I think it was 6-1, but a vote for approval of the NOPC that was subsequently adopted by the County Commission under Ordinance 2017-12, which was a very lengthy, several-year process. There was litigation that ensued after that between Sandestin Owners Association and SDI, and there was a settlement agreement and a revised ordinance that was eventually approved back in November. So here you are finding yourself for the first time having an opportunity to consider a project pursuant to those settlement agreements and what those allocations of entitlements were. To orient you, this site is called parcel 320.1. All Sandestin has different parcel numbers. And this is, for those of you that have been out there, this is the conference center, this is the Grand Sandestin, this is the Lasada condominium, this is Bahia condominium, and this is Elation condominium. The Grand Sandestin and Lasada is proposed one homeowners association. Okay, all the unit owners, even if you're a building, one association. Separate association for Bahia parking, access, both temporarily during construction and permanently at the end. What's it going to look like? And really it was more of a lack of familiarity because they'd gotten involved late with the actual construction plan. So taking the advice of the Planning Commission, we met, I think it was 8 days later, for the better part of 6 hours and with representatives of each of the associations. And Mr. Shipman went through all the plans, went through construction drawings, went through timelines, the entire 9 yards, went out to the site, counted parking spaces. We call this the north parking lot, the south parking lot, counted how many vehicle parking spaces, how many golf cart spaces there were, and came up with some agreements, and that have been codified in a letter that Mr. Burgess presented to Matt Carpenter that I don't think is in your package, but I'll go over it with you, and I brought extra copies for you. Essentially what it's left is the hotel is now dropped from 252 rooms to 250 rooms. Can you put this up so the members of the audience can see it? On my approach. This is a best description to tell you. This is the south. This is this parking lot right here, the south parking lot. That's where the hotel is going to be built. This here is the existing drive aisle that you see coming up to the grand porch there. It goes to an underground parking garage here, and it comes down currently, and it goes to this underground parking garage. And what you can't see is that underneath all this land in here, accessing it from here and here, you have underground parking for each of these condominiums that were created by Air West when they built these things. So what, and there's some easements that were created in the public records, and I went through these with Mr. Shepard. There's two in particular, and one is called, we call it access easement number 1, it's referenced on the plan, and it is essentially this drive aisle going up into here and around here, and it stops here. Then access number 2, they call easement number 2, it's really a modification easement. You just extended it down, so cars came up here, they could come down here, and they could access into the underground parking garage with the company. Okay? This easement's going to be modified. During construction, this area right here is what we call a laydown area. It's marked, as you can see, construction laydown area. So we had to create temporary access, can't shut off, access to the condominiums and all these unit owners. And so right now, there is an existing access way into this more parking lot, but this is not here. So we're going to create this here, so people can still come in here, come in, come back out, and they can still go into the south parking lot. You see these spaces up here that are marked? Those, we call those the elation parking spaces. There's another reason. And the only one of these condominiums, Elation, has the right to use 45 parking spaces within this north parking lot, and they access it from here. Their spaces are actually, some of them are over here, and some of them are over here, by the actual recorded easement agreement. But by discussions with them, they would like to have their parking spaces all up closer to their building. And so in our site plan, we've agreed to mark off these specific spaces. They will not be interrupted at all during construction. They'll be accessed through this temporary so that they can access here and they can still access underneath the building. And so they will not be interrupted at any time. The figured that there would be a parking deck built somewhere, an additional parking deck, but we did not know exactly where it would be, and we still can't tell you guys exactly where it's gonna be. But working with, Mr. Shipman and county, staff, we wanted to show at least a conceptual, and because one of the big concessions is that we had submitted this project, based on an occupancy rate of 72%, based on the national CBRE, study, for these hotel rooms, which only showed that we needed 200 parking spaces. One of the things that the condominium owners, they said, regardless of what your occupancy rate is, and regardless of internal capture, we want you to have one space per hotel room, and so we agreed to do that. By agreeing to do that, we have got 250 parking spaces. Once this is done, I think we're 31 short on parking if we were just using surface parking. So there will be a parking deck. Now, how tall that will be, I can't tell you. It's gonna be at least two-story deck. It could be more, but 2 stories will take care of the parking needs of the hotel. And one of the things that in our motion will be as a condition that that the staff gets to see the final location of the parking garage, the elevation, make sure that they look at it from a technical standpoint, and that we can't get a CO on the building without that going through all that, and that parking deck actually being built, so that those 200, whatever those additional parking spaces will be available for the hotel. So all we've done is kind of put in a bubble diagram right here. This could be here, could move over here, could be up in here. It's never going to interfere with these 45 spaces. If this access somehow gets interrupted because of the design of the hotel, we'll create another access, what's called secondary access, so that the Elation parking lot people would be able to go through here and be able to access their spaces without having to go through the main drive aisle. And that's another concession that we made with the condos. Of course, these are your elevations. I'm going to pass these out. This will be our first exhibit, composite one. Apologize for y'all getting this and not getting it in your package, but literally, Mr. Shipman in my office and staff have been working every single day on this for the last 2 weeks, or 12 days, and there was even final revision today. So you'll see that color-coded map, in there. That's called sheet 202, which is what I was just going over with you. But the important thing is the letter that Mr. Burgess, which lays out 6 conditions that we'll submit to you at the appropriate time as part of a suggested motion. And there's a 7th condition, which I've written out and I'll hand to you, which provides for that additional access to the parking spaces in the event that parking deck interferes with the one that's currently there. So I've got Mr. Dean Burgess here, our civil engineer, Daryl Burgess, the surveyor, Mr. Becknell. We're here to answer any questions you may have. I think Mr. Shipman can speak for himself, but it's my understanding he's agreed with everything that we're presenting today. I know there may be other members of the audience that have comments and would like the opportunity to speak to those comments after they're finished, unless you all want to hear from me anymore right now.
No, we'll. Anybody got any questions? Okay, thank you. All right. We'll open up the public portion. So I've got one person that signed up to speak, which is Gary Shipman. Gary, you going to speak?
I really just came to make sure that we got that last condition added in, that I'll call the north easement for Elation, where they have two easements to access the parking, got preserved. I mean, it can be moved, but they still get two, as long as that occurs, and the other things we've agreed on, and my three associations do not object.
Okay, thank you. Like I said, we didn't have anybody else sign up to speak, but I'm sure we have some people that might want to in the audience. So, is there anyone that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Goy Bowman, B-O-W-M-A-N. First, I would like to mention that this part of Sandestin belongs to me, belongs to the Choctaw Nation. It was stolen back in the 60s. You know how they say possession is 9/10 of the law? The reason it's not 10/10 is because that 1/10 is when somebody steals something from you. So basically what this means is that everybody that pays lease to St. Joe will now pay lease to me. And no one is allowed to build anything on any piece of land on this island anymore. Okay, so now let's talk about the paperwork behind this. If you look at the deedery on this, it is just covered with the words conservation easement. If you open all of these, which I haven't gotten to open them all, but I've added up over 30 acres of land that's supposed to be conservation land, meaning untouched. If you read the covenants of this, in the Declaration of Covenants, it actually says, this property shall remain in its natural state, including to the extent reasonably possible. It is possible to not build on something. Maintenance of native vegetation and wetlands, unaltered and undeveloped by structures or appurtenances, which I guess means other things, of any nature whatsoever. This covenant shall run with the property and shall be enforceable by the purchaser, its respective heirs, representatives, successors, and assigns an interest. Okay, here's some legal stuff. Anyway, so it says right here in the actual paperwork listed with this property that you're not supposed to build on it, like not ever. There's also supposed to be a bunch of untouched wetlands in Sandestin. So, like, I don't know anybody in Sandestin that wants to see anything else built there. The people that actually live there, development that's going on this island is just going to destroy it. It's going to sink it. They've just approved to build a whole bunch of stuff that isn't legal to build, and it's creating all kinds of drainage issues, and despite the fact that people say they can do something about it. I've read all on the sludge that's getting into the bay from Sandestin being overdeveloped. The people who actually live there are complaining that the fish and the crabs no longer come up because of all of the waste that's getting into the bay from overdeveloped Sandestin. So, like, I know that the county stands to make somewhere over $2 million for the tap fees on this, and of course they're going to say yes because all they're interested in is money, as well as these people behind me. Max Matthews is personally responsible for a huge amount of destruction to this island. So these people back here, they're only interested in money. They're not interested in the welfare of the people, they're not interested in the welfare of the land, and they're not interested in the welfare of the United States of America. I'm sick of seeing the destruction of what was once one of the most ideal pieces of nature. The coastal dune lakes we have here are unlike even the other 4 coastal dune lakes in the world. Ours are unique for the fact that they open up. All of this construction is really just destroying us. It's putting too much structural weight on the land. There's no land under this land. And if you continue to approve and okay these giant structures, this whole island's just going to sink. Of course, I know that's what the county wants it to do. But basically, you're destroying one of America's greatest national treasures by allowing all of this construction. So the paperwork on this says you're not supposed to build on it. As far as I'm concerned, it's a moral and a sin to approve anything like this. So I guess that's pretty much what I have to say. And shame on you if you say that this is okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, do we have anyone else from the audience who wants to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. All right, commissioners, what are your wishes?
Yes.
Oh, sure. You want to answer that?
Two things. One, I want to make sure everybody knows that this project's been designed with stormwater under the current standards that are required. The county engineering and public works have reviewed it, and there's been no objection to stormwater. Second of all, there are conservation easements in Sandestin as well as lots of places in Walton County, not on this piece. This is being built on an existing parking lot. There's not an issue. If I may hand out to the commission a proposed motion for you to consider, and it is a motion to approve upon the following conditions. Conditions numbers 1 through 6 as stated in the staff report dated March 8th, 2018. 2, conditions 1 through 6 contained in Emerald Coast Associates, Dean Burgess's March 23rd, revised March 28th letter to Mac Carpenter, which you have in front of you. And 3, the other matter that Mr. Shipman and I discussed. After construction is complete, the access off Baytown Avenue into the north parking lot as it currently exists will be restored, or, depending on the final location of the parking deck, will be redesigned so that Elation shall have a second access to their 45 parking spaces other than through access easement number 1 in ORA Book 2567, page 1807.
Dana, we actually don't have Dean's letter. Would you like to make that a part of the record?
Yeah, I made that a copy.
We just have the drawings.
The letter's not attached?
Yeah, I don't see it.
You got it?
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, that would be my, yes, sir.
Dana, these are the agreements y'all have made, just put it in the record.
Yes, sir, and I've shared this motion with Mr. Carpenter as well.
Back, okay.
No,
No.
public portion is closed.
Can we make sure the dean's letter in our composite exhibit is a drawing?
So we'll make this letter exhibit number 2, applicant's exhibit number 2.
You talking about this?
No, it's a letter, we can pass it around if you like. It's a
Okay.
letter from Dean Burgess.
All right.
I think the contents of it is summarized in what Mr. Matthews just handed out to you guys.
Oh, okay, it's in this, basically.
Yes, I believe so.
Don't touch me. Let go of me. You're hurting me. You're not legally allowed to touch me.
Mr. Matthews, is that everything you got?
That's it. Just let y'all have any questions.
All right. Anybody got any questions?
I don't have a problem with any of it. I mean, Mike agrees with it. Mr. Shipman does. Mr. Matthews does. It's all entered as a record. Everybody.
So do we need a motion to approve,
Yeah.
to enter these into the,
You can, Mr. Barker, you can just, if you find these conditions acceptable, you can just state that you would make a motion in line with what Mr. Matthews presented.
So
And we'll
moved.
have that for Karen. I'm sorry, Mac? What, Mac?
Rachel's making copies of the updated March 23rd letter revised March 28th that has 6 additional conditions in it that we'd like to incorporate into the proposed motion.
These are 6 other than what we have in here?
There are
In our-
6 other than the 6 that are in the staff report.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna ask for those 6 conditions in the staff report, and the additional 6 conditions that are in the letter,
Right.
addressed to me dated yesterday. And, 1 additional condition related to the, Elation, secondary access.
To those 45 parking spaces?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
In other words, the same motion I
Right.
Yeah.
It's all in
It's
there.
all in here, I just want to make sure you understood exactly what that second group of six
Okay.
is. And I think the applicants worked very hard with the adjoining property owners to reach agreement related to parking, and we wanted to incorporate those things.
So we're looking at 13 conditions at this point.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
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 I make the motion, we accept upon the terms that they've agreed upon with the conditions that have been talked about.
Okay.
Second that.
All right. We got a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion approved.
The one that was stamped,
Thank you.
Dan's letter. Yeah.
Well, they did all the work. That was good. They did the work.
Yeah.
Yeah, the hardest job tonight.
Thank you, Commissioners, that's our entire agenda tonight.
Thanks, Mac. We're adjourned. Yeah, good deal.